Well, good morning, you guys. It is 4th of July weekend. The faithful, so many of you guys watching online as well. We want to say welcome. Let's go ahead and stand if you are able. We're going to get ready to go into worship here. Glad you guys are joining us. This week I was working because I work here. By the way, my name is Steven. Good to see you guys. And I was walking around, and in the lobby, I walk out of the church offices, and in the lobby there's probably like 100 junior high students. And man, that lobby was hot and sweaty, and it smelled. It was pretty intense. But those students were headed to summer camp this week, which, as I was processing that and just even spending some time this morning praying about it, God just reminded me, like, those moments when we, do something big like that. We're headed to a camp, we're leaving work or home or whatever that is. We do not need to do that to have an intimate moment with God where He wants to meet us and connect with us and share something fresh with us. So we're going to do that here this morning. And I'd invite you, no matter what you're walking in with today, God wants to meet you here. Maybe this is your first time here. Believe me, you've been prayed for. We're excited that you're here. And I'm just believing God's going to share something fresh with you this week. So we're going to pray, and then we're going to worship together. And I just encourage you, don't miss this opportunity. God wants to share something with you. So just posture open hearts, open minds. We're going to pray, and then we'll jump into it. So Jesus, we thank you for today. I thank you for this opportunity to worship you in the midst of our circumstances, in the midst of whatever's going on, God. We come in today knowing you want to meet with us. You want to share something with us that's going to help us grow closer to you. And so, Jesus, we are excited to hear what that is, and thank you for this opportunity to worship together. Everybody said, amen.
There is no shadow that has ever overcome your light, and there is no rival that could ever stand against your might. You've always been with us. Every battle you've already won. You've already won. Hey, let's celebrate that today. There's no weapon. There is no weapon that has ever left a mark on you. There is no army with the power to conquer truth. You've always been with us. Every battle you've already won. You've already won. Show me one thing He can't do. Show me a mountain He can't move. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me waters He can't part. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. There is a kingdom that's advancing at the speed of light, and in this kingdom every dead thing is bound to rise. Oh God, our Redeemer, He is faithful to revive. Oh, He will revive. Sing, show me one thing He can't do. Show me a mountain He can't move. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. We believe. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me waters He can't part. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. It's possible. All right, guys, put your hands together like this. Let's sing this out. And all of my fear I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment and break every chain. Oh, all of my fear I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance I I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment and break every chain. All of my fear I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance, I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment. Show me one thing he can do. Show me a mountain he can move. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me waters he can't part. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. It's so good to be together this morning. We have so much to be thankful for. This next song just reminds us what God has done for his people and what he does for us. I'm calling on the God of Jacob, whose love endures through generations. I know that you will keep your covenant. I'm calling on the God of Moses, the one who opened up the ocean. I need you now to do the same thing for me. Let's all sing together. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. God, your faithfulness. The God of Mary, whose favor rests upon the lowly. I know with you all things are possible. I'm calling on the God of David, who made a shepherd boy courageous. Not face Goliath, but I got my own giants. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Oh, your faithful. You heard your children then, you hear your children now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. Sing with me. You are the same God. That's right. You are the same
guys so much. You guys can take your seats. What an incredible time of worship this morning. Again, welcome. It is 4th of July weekend. I know. One applause. I love it. Love the energy. Love the energy. I wish it was a little like sunnier out, but maybe tomorrow we'll be saying our prayers for some sunshine. But again, welcome to Northshore. Super glad that you're here. My name is Stephen Bolt, and if this is your first time here or you've been here for a while, hopefully you've either heard it said or read it in the lobby somewhere that we believe that Jesus can change everything for anyone. And no matter where you're at on that journey, whether you've been a Christ follower for a number of years or you're just kind of have some questions about who Jesus is, we have a tool here that we use just to help you with some of those next steps and help you along that journey. It's called our connection card. If you're on our campus here, you'll find that actually in the seat pocket in front of you. You can take it out. It's a little square card. If you're online, you'll see it pop up there and you can scan a QR code. And on the back of that card, you'll see a number of different things that we have, again, that are just opportunities for you to take your next steps. I'd encourage you, pray about if there's something that God has put on your heart that maybe you haven't taken that step yet. This week is a great opportunity. One thing on there I wanted to highlight is the checkbox that says, I want to get baptized. Next Sunday, July 10th, we are going to be doing baptisms right here on our Kirkland campus. Yes, all right. Baptisms are why we do what we do, man. We want to see people come to know who Jesus is and take that step, believing in faith that as they get baptized, the old life is gone and they are born new. And so if that's something, man, you're ready to get baptized, you have questions about that, I'd encourage you guys, check that box. You either can just turn it in at the boxes on the way out, or if you, again, have questions or want to know more, you can take that out to our guest service table and chat with them there. You also can just let us know in the chat online if you'd like to get baptized. It's going to be a phenomenal week, and a lot of other people are going to be getting baptized too, so I encourage you, take that step with them. Another thing we talk about each week is just the impact of your generosity. For some of us that maybe just come on Sundays, we don't get to see all of the things that happen here throughout the week. Again, throughout the week, we have hundreds of people that are gathering together in community and life groups. Even over the summer, there's still some groups meeting. Throughout the week, all these rooms on campuses are full of people, again, just learning how to become better Christ followers, disciple makers. Tons of ministry happens here that you guys don't get to see. And I want you to be encouraged. Even, I don't know if you know this, but every Wednesday night, we actually have something that happens called midweek. It's a group of hundreds of students that come in and just get to hear again about the gospel, spend time with friends, and incredible impact. So if you want to give to be a part of stuff like that, you can head over to northshore.church/give, or you actually can turn giving in those boxes on your way out as well. Hey guys, what's going on here?
We're getting set up for Summerpalooza.
Caleb, dude, you know Summerpalooza's next Sunday, right? Not this Sunday?
Well, we're just really pumped about Summerpalooza.
All right, well, what do you know? And we didn't even rehearse that. Wow, that went so good job, Caleb. Join the camera team, they say. So guys, Summerpalooza is coming up next Sunday. If you were here last year, it was an incredible time of just connecting with people within the church as well as our community. There's gonna be bounce houses and free food and archery and giveaways and I don't know what else. There's gonna be a baptism on the brain. A dunk tank. There is a difference between a dunk tank and baptism. I swear I did not plan that. That was real. Hey, if you want to get baptized in the dunk tank, please come talk to me after service. I would love to get you baptized in the dunk tank. I'll throw the ball. It'll be great. But there was a dunk tank last year, and I wanted to show you in case you missed it, just so you can relish in the sheer joy of this moment that happened last year. Let's go ahead and roll that video. So proud, so proud. For those of you who don't know, that's our senior pastor, Scotty Scruggs. And that guy was just walking by and literally side-armed. It was a beautiful moment, and we're gonna see it again this year. So you're not gonna wanna miss it. It's gonna be a ton of fun. Again, this is next Sunday, Caleb. Next Sunday, July 10th, right after our 10:30 experience. It's, again, a great opportunity to invite neighbors. And another thing that you know about Northshore is we are a church for our neighbors and the next generation and those in need. And this is a phenomenal opportunity to just live out that value of being together for our neighbors. A huge group of people last year that attended Palooza were actually people who have never been to Northshore before. and we need people that are going to be out there greeting, again, living out this vision of being a church for our neighbors. So you have lots of opportunities to serve at this. So here's what we're going to do. On that connection card, everyone, if you didn't take it out before, now is the time. Go ahead and grab that, take it out. You should have a connection card in one hand and maybe coffee or whatever else in the other. But that connection card, and what you're gonna do, if you wanna be a part of making Palooza happen, again, being this church for our neighbors and welcoming people in, we are looking for even more volunteers. And so you're just volunteering just for part of the event. Again, it's a great time. You're still gonna be able to hang out with your friends and neighbors and whoever you invite. But on that card, you can write Palooza on the bottom. Just Palooza. If you don't know how to spell it, I don't know either. It's right there. Look at Palooza. You're going to write that on the bottom. And the first person to write Palooza on their card and hold it up in the air, Mr. Gary Lindsay, the beautiful Gary, is going to give away this lovely inflatable pizza. Ooh, what? Already? Come on. Good work. Let's give it up for our first Palooza volunteer. Well, thank you. And again, please take this opportunity. It's going to be a ton of fun. Even serving on the team is a blast. You still get to experience Palooza, so make sure to sign up. Well, in addition to Palooza baptisms, next week's going to be incredible. Don't miss it. We have other stuff coming up that we don't want you to miss out on. So again, welcome to North Shore and check this out.
Hey, welcome to North Shore. My name is Bree, and it's so good to be with you today. We know that Jesus can change everything for anyone, and we believe that God has a plan for you today. We're about to jump into the message, but first we want to let you know about some of the things that are coming up that we don't want you to miss out on.
A fantastic way to make a difference in your life and others is to join a team at North Shore. This week, we are focusing on the groups and care team. There are opportunities to lead life groups, care for people in crisis, and promote healthy spiritual growth. Learn more about what it means to serve by checking groups and care on your connection card or visit us at guest services in the lobby.
We believe that God is calling you to greater things this year. Baptism is a demonstration of our decision to follow Jesus. Take your next step in your relationship with Jesus and sign up to get baptized on July 10th. To learn more, go to northshore.church/baptism.
See what God can do through you this year by being a part of Starting Point. Starting Point is a 4-week experience kicking off on July 11th, where we'll help you find community, places to serve, and ways for you to grow deeper in your relationship with Jesus. To register, check Starting Point on your connection card or head over to northshore.church/startingpoint.
There are so many ways to grow in your faith beyond Sundays, so head over to northshore.church or follow us on social media to find even more ways to be connected. And now let's get ready for the message. Thanks again for joining us.
Hey, good morning, North Shore. That's right, my name is Stan. Thank you for acknowledging that. It's okay, we got one person excited that I'm here, and that is the right amount of people to be excited that I am here. My name is Stan. I am the life group pastor at our church, and I'm excited that you're here, whether you're here in the room with us or joining online. And last week, Wolfgang kicked us off in a series in the book of Proverbs called How to Wreck Your Life. And it's really this series designed around teaching us God's wisdom for our life so that actually we don't wreck our lives, that we understand that if we follow God's ways, that will lead to life and fruit and all sorts of good things in our life. So I was thinking about Proverbs and just kind of where does that take us? What's kind of like the modern equivalent? And where my mind went was to life hacks. So that's probably a term you're familiar with, but just in case anybody doesn't know, I think what a life hack is supposed to be is it's supposed to be this kind of like non-obvious solution to a problem you might have. So if you're gonna go paint, you can put a tablespoon of vanilla in your paint and that will help with the fumes. Or if you've got like unripe fruit, some people are learning stuff right now. So if you've got unripe fruit, if you actually store it with a banana, somehow that makes the fruit ripen faster. I don't know, I'm not a scientist, I went to Bible school. But if you go down the life hack rabbit hole, you will see them get more and more absurd. So I saw a lady suggesting like wrapping your head in saran wrap and then smearing peanut butter on your face. So that way when you have to cut your dog's nails, he's distracted licking the peanut butter off your face and then you can get it done. I don't know how you see through the peanut butter to accomplish it, but you can do that kind of thing. Or I found this life hack a day calendar, and I'm just gonna read you this one. It says, how to easily calculate a 20% tip. Take the total cost of your bill and move the decimal one place to the left. Double the number to get your 20% tip. You lost me at decimal. Like, I have no idea what that was supposed to say. Like, this life hack needed to be, your phone has a calculator, right? Like, that was what needed to happen. Well, there is a TikTok creator, which is a job, apparently, named Kabi Lame. I hope I'm saying that right. And he's actually the most popular TikTok creator. He has like 8 of the top 10 views. And what he does is he just makes fun of these really absurd life hacks. So you've probably seen this, but I want to show you one of his. He makes millions of dollars just doing videos like that. Well, the book of Proverbs is kind of like a life hack section of the Bible, except in the best possible and least absurd way, because it's just so practical. It's just an extremely practical book. And Proverbs is more than just finding a way to make your task in life a little easier. Last week, Wolfgang encouraged us all to start reading a chapter of Proverbs a day and just letting that like saturate our life. And if you started doing that, you'd see that, oh wow, every one of these is just super practical. Because at the end of the day, what Wolfgang gave us a definition of Proverbs or of wisdom, and that it was having skill in living, And Proverbs is part of that wisdom literature section of the Bible. And as you dive into the Proverbs, you'll see that for every aspect of life, God has wisdom. God has skill in living for you available so that you know how to navigate every situation that you might encounter. And this morning, what we're going to look into is what the Proverbs have to say about friendships. And I don't really have like one particular verse that we're going to go to, so we're going to jump around a lot, and all the verses will be on the screen for you. And last week, like I said, Wolfgang gave us this definition of wisdom that's called skill in living. But I actually want to build upon that definition a little bit, because what we'll see is that the Proverbs are really practical. Where we find enhanced meaning is when we deepen our understanding of what wisdom really is. So before we get into any friendship Proverbs, I want to look at some verses. This is Proverbs 3:13 through 18. I'm going to read it for you. Blessed is the one who has found wisdom, and the one who obtains understanding. For her benefit is more profitable than silver, and her gain is better than gold. She is more precious than rubies, and none of the things you desire can compare with her. A long life is in her right hand, and in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are very pleasant, and all her paths are peaceful. She is like a tree of life to those who grasp onto her, and everyone who takes hold of her will be blessed. So last week, Wolfgang really dived into verses 14 through 17. So I'm going to dive into 13 and 18 a little bit more. But if you want to know more about those, you can go listen to those last week. So if we could just bring up verses 13 and 18. I just want to highlight 2 words out of here for you. This wisdom word and the tree of life word. So I'm going to teach you a Hebrew word real quick. The word is chokmah. Can we bring it up so you can see it in English? I put it in English. I thought that'd be more helpful. So chokmah, and the CH and the KM are more of a throat clearing noise. Everyone say that with me. Chokmah. Yeah, got to get that throat clearing in there. It doesn't count. One more time. Chokmah. All right. So chokmah is the word that we are using to translate into English for wisdom in verse 13. It's the word we're using for wisdom. And Hebrew is what you would call like a conceptual language, and so a word can have multiple meanings at the same time. So chokmah, or wisdom, has that idea of having skill in living, but it also has this other component to it. And what it is it's this idea that kind of embedded into our universe, embedded into the world God created, is that there is just a design for it. There are paths that lead to life and paths that lead to destruction. Paths that God blesses and paths that God frustrates. And chokmah is kind of like saying there's a DNA to our world. There's an embedded thing that will happen, that will come to fruition. It's like saying there's a destiny to this world, that God's going to do stuff in it, and God's going to cause things to go a certain direction. And there's this Martin Luther King Jr. quote that kind of describes this from a different direction. It says, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." And what he's getting at there is similar to Chokmah, that given enough time, this universe, this world that God has given us, will go God's direction. In his case, he's talking about justice. In our case, we're talking about wisdom, that God's designs for this world will happen given enough time. So if we go back to Proverbs 13 and 18, you look at the 18 verse, it says, she is like a tree of life to those who grasp onto her. And the she is wisdom. And what the author is trying to take our minds back to is the Garden of Eden story. So the Garden of Eden story, God creates this perfect place for Adam and Eve to dwell where it's harmonious and there's no sin and there's no brokenness and everything is the way it's supposed to be. And in Genesis 2:9, it says this, the Lord God made all kinds of trees grow from the soil, every tree that was pleasing to look at and good for food. Now the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil were in the middle of the orchard. So these two trees represent two different ways of doing life. The tree of knowledge of good and evil represented the path where they made themselves wise in their own eyes. They trusted in their own wisdom. And that led to destruction, and they were cast out of that harmonious, perfect place. But then there was the tree of life, which was to be living according to God's wisdom, trusting for God's designs for that world. And that was going to lead to more life in Eden, but that Eden would extend beyond that for them. And so what the author of Proverbs is trying to say is he's saying, hey, when we follow Chokmah, when we follow wisdom, it's an opportunity to live like we're in Eden again, to apply the principles of Eden to our life. That we get a chance to go, hey, if we were still in Eden, this is how we would have been living. This is how we would have approached situations. This is how we would have done things. But the opposite is true too, that if we ignore that advice, if we ignore that wisdom, we actually find ourselves with lives that don't look like Eden, that look like destruction, that look like pain, that look like suffering. And if we ignore what God's wisdom is for us, we actually wreck our lives. So that's kind of enhancing our understanding of wisdom. Now I want to look at some verses specifically about friendship from the book of Proverbs. So I've got a couple of them from all over Proverbs. So we got the first one, yep. Proverbs 13:20. The one who associates with the wise grows wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm. Proverbs 18:24. There are companions who harm one another, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so a person sharpens his friends. And then lastly, Proverbs 22, verses 24 through 25. Do not make friends with an angry person, and do not associate with a wrathful person, lest you learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare. So these are just a sampling of a lot of verses about friendships that you could find in the book of Proverbs. But you'll see that kind of the underlying theme is that you have to be careful about who you surround yourself with, because who you surround yourself with has the potential to shape and affect you, and shape and affect your life. And so if you surround yourself with wise people, you're gonna become wise. If you surround yourself with committed people, when bad stuff happens, you'll have people there to support you. And you're gonna have relationships that are gonna have friction, but that friction is actually good. It actually sharpens both of you. But the converse is also true too. If you surround yourself with fools or with wrathful people, it says, hey, you're gonna become like those people too. Or if you surround yourself with quote unquote friends who are actually more biting, well, what happens when you suffer? What happens when something goes wrong? You don't actually have the support you need because there's no real depth of relationship there. And not all friction is actually good friction. Some friction is actually really bad and painful for everyone involved. And so last week, Wolfgang introduced us to a man named Solomon, who was the wisest man who ever lived. And the story of his son, Rehoboam, who took over after Solomon, is kind of a narrative example of everything that Proverbs is saying. So I'm not going to read you the story from the Bible, but if you want to look it up, it's in 1 Kings 12. I'll just tell you the story. So Solomon dies, Rehoboam gets inaugurated. And right when he gets inaugurated, the people come to him and say, what kind of king are you going to be? We want to know what to expect out of you. And they said, your dad was actually a really hard guy to have as a king. He worked us really hard, he taxed us a lot, and we're asking you to lighten those burdens, and if you do, we will serve you forever. We'll be loyal to you forever. So Rehoboam hears this, and he goes, let me go see what people think about this. So it says he goes to his dad's friends, who were older, wise men, who were advisors, who had been through a lot, and he says, hey, this is what the people said. What do you guys think of that? And they go, the people are right. Your dad was really hard. Your dad was a hard guy to work for. He taxed people a lot. And so if you go about being king and think of yourself as a steward, and you think of yourself as, my job is to take care of the people, and shepherd them well, essentially, and make sure that they have what they need, they're going to love you, they're going to serve you, they're going to be committed to you. You should do what they're asking of you. So he hears that and goes, well, let me see what my friends think. And it says he goes to the young men who he grew up with. And he asks them, what do you think about what the people are saying and that my dad's friends are telling me I should follow their advice? And they go, man, those idiots, they don't know what's up. What you need to do is you need to go to these people and say, how dare you ask me for this kind of stuff? And you need to tell them, you think my dad was bad? Just wait till you see me. You're gonna raise the taxes, you're gonna work them harder, you're just gonna crush their spirits. And by crushing their spirits, they're gonna be so afraid of you, they won't know what to do and they'll have to be loyal to you. And he goes, man, that sounds like great advice. And so he buys into this really like Machiavellian, like crush the people, rule by fear sort of thought. And he needed to buy into a Michael Scott, I want them to be afraid of how much they love me. And the people end up abandoning him. And it causes all this tension, and Israel splits into two nations, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on. But the Rehoboam story is this narrative example of everything Proverbs is saying. And it really presents this tree of life, tree of knowledge of good and evil dynamic at play. He had two choices in front of him. He could have made the right choice, and it would have led to an Eden-like experience in his nation. But instead, he was wise in his own eyes. He was wise in his friends' eyes, and it tore everything apart. And so Proverbs, in its skill in living, is asking us to wrestle with what kind of people have I surrounded myself with? What kind of relationships do I have? What kind of influence do they have on me? What kind of boundaries do I need? But there's also an invitation to consider ourselves as the friend, to put ourselves in the other spot of Proverbs and go, well, what kind of friend am I? Do I make people wiser? Am I supportive? Am I committed? Is the friction that I bring into relationships actually good friction? And we have to answer those questions with wisdom, and it will shape who we are. And I was a youth pastor for a long time, and so I got to observe in people's adolescence for how this all just took place. You know, when you're a teenager, this is like front and center in people's lives. So you would have a kid come into youth group and they'd be one way, and then they'd make a new friend group, and then they'd be completely different. And a lot of times that's just trivial stuff. You know, their fashion changes, their music choice changes, like what they're interested in. If you could find some high school pictures of me, you would see some emo bangs and some tight jeans and some music that was really sad, because that's what all my friends were into. And that's just like, yeah, this is how you fit into this group. And so sometimes that stuff doesn't really matter. But other times it really does matter, right? Like they can end up in a friend group that really brings them down and really takes them into a not good place. But they also can find a friend group that's really supportive and is their type of people and the people they need in their life, and it actually takes them to a great place. And I think we can see that really obviously in adolescent years, and we think as adults, oh, we've moved on from that. That could never happen to us. Well, let me tell you about something called the Ash line study. If we could bring this up. Okay. So which line is the same length as the line on the left? So before I tell you what this is, we'll just do a real quick survey. Raise your hand if you think it's line A. Okay, if you're online, basically everybody's hand is up. It's okay if you thought it was the other two lines, that's okay, but line A is the majority answer. So the Ash line study, what they would do is they would take 8 people and they would bring them in a room and they would show them this picture. But for 7 of the people, they would say, we want you all to say it's line B. Or line C, one of the obviously wrong answers. Everybody was gonna say the wrong answer. And then they would see how the last person would react. Would they stick with the truth, what they knew, what their eyes were telling them, or would they conform to what everybody else was saying? And 75% of the time, the person would conform to what the group was saying, which just feels like a lot, right? Like, because it feels like the answer is so obvious. You know, it's not like a trick of the light or something like that. But the peer pressure in the situation would cause them to conform. But then they did the study again, and they changed one thing about it. They would bring 8 people into a room. 6 of them, they would say, do the wrong answer. To the 7th person, they would say, do the right answer. And then we'll see what the last person who's not in on it, what they say. And for less than 5% of the time, the person would conform. By just having one supportive person in that dynamic, it changed the whole thing for them. They were able to stay true to what they saw, they were able to be who they were, all that kind of stuff. And this is just a common grace example of everything Proverbs is saying, right? That who we surround ourselves with has potential to affect and to shape us, has potential to lead us in certain directions. And so, negatively speaking, as we start to think about our own lives, you know, one of the things that has been kind of prominent in our society in the last, decade or so is just a lens on toxic cultures, whether that's a workplace or a system or a church or things like that. And one of the interesting things about that is when you hear people's stories in those environments, oftentimes people who went in who are well-intended, good-meaning people, by being in those toxic places, they found themselves becoming toxic themselves, right? They surrounded themselves with toxicity and it seeped into them. But positively speaking, you look at something like a recovery group. And so you take someone who's on the road to recovery and you surround them with people who are empathetic, who are sympathetic, who are supportive, who have no desire to put up pretense but are just honest, who are a little bit down the road further than where they're at, and they find a place of community there, and that person finds healing, and that person finds restoration, and that person finds recovery. Our relationships just have this potential to be transformative in our lives. So let me just share an example from my life. So I'm from California originally, if you didn't know that. I'm from California. And in 2010, I was going to move from California, from like a beach town, to Toledo, Ohio. You can see where this is going. How that's going to be a little bit of a fish out of water situation. I was going to take a church job, a junior high pastor job, and move from California all the way to Toledo. And there were a number of reasons why that transition was going to be difficult. One, the job was going to end up turning out to be something different than I thought it was going to be. And then, I was leaving one church that I had grown up with, but there was a bunch of turmoil, and I was feeling kind of ethically like, I can't stay here, and so I need to go do something else instead. And, so your kind of spiritual framework is changing, and I was moving to an area where I didn't really know anyone. And then, just on top of that, I had only seen snow 2 times in my life. That was not something it was like a thing that you went to, and you're like, oh, this is cool, now we can leave and go back to the sun, right? That was my life. And I don't know if you've been to Toledo, there's a lot of snow, right? The winter starts, and then it just goes, right? That's it. And so this transition in my life just had this potential to be just a really hard thing. And right when I got there, I made these 2 friends who were brother and sister, and they and their family just made a ton of effort to include me into their family. They had a Friday night family night, and they were like, this is where you spend your Friday nights with us. We want you to be here. I spent my holidays with them. They just really just ingratiated me into their family. And it just changed the whole dynamic of what that experience was like. Now, I look back on Ohio, and I haven't lived there in a decade, and yet it still feels like home, right? It still feels like this place that was so comforting and just so much of what a home is supposed to be because of how the relationships I had made the experience for me. So Proverbs is trying to take us to this place where we just think through what our relationships are like. What are they supposed to be like? What is our role in them? And should we have them? Should we have boundaries? What is the dynamic there? And all of those questions are complex, and you have to wrestle through what's the right answer. And there's no one-size-fits-all answer for every person's relationships. But there is something else that we have as a resource, which is Jesus. And as Christians, we believe that Jesus is the perfect embodiment of wisdom. He's the perfect embodiment of Chokmah. He's always living the way that God intends it to be. So, meaning Jesus is not just a person who is morally perfect. Jesus is also relationally perfect. Jesus is also relationally perfect. He's always making the Eden choice in every situation he's in. He's always relating to people in the perfect way. He's always doing the right thing relationally. So when you see Jesus interacting with people, he always has the right balance of firmness versus empathy. Or he always knows when to show compassion versus having a strong word for someone. Or he knows when to get into the argument and when also to stay out of the argument. And he has the right balance of time for task and time for people and time for rest. And he just knows how to navigate all of these things. And he knows how to balance grace and truth properly. And if we reflect on our own lives, all of those types of dynamics are things that we probably wrestle with, things that we probably don't know exactly what to do. Times where you thought, okay, the best thing to do right now is get the task done, and actually the best thing to do was to be present relationally with someone. Or times where you thought, okay, what this person needs right now is a problem solver, and they were actually just looking for someone to listen. Or times where you thought, okay, what this person needs right now is a smack of truth, and really what they needed was someone to speak some grace to them. And I highlight those examples because those are like the areas where I consistently don't make the right decision. I end up on the wrong side of those kinds of equations. And so just like another common example from my life. So I like to cook. That's probably my main hobby, and I'm an okay home cook. And I also enjoy hospitality. We like having people over and things like that. But when I'm in the kitchen cooking, I am not a hospitable person. Like, you can talk to my wife, she will tell you, Stan, you don't want to be in the kitchen with Stan, he's annoying, all that kind of stuff. And it's true, she's not wrong. And what will happen is, in my effort to be hospitable for someone, I'll get so focused on the task of cooking that I'm just a jerk to that person. And so what I'm trying to say is, if I invite you over for dinner, don't show up early. No. What I'm trying to say is, I have to do some wrestling. I have to saturate my mind with more of Jesus and knowing him and how he would be in those situations so that I start to make the right choice. And that's true for all areas of life. We have to know how Jesus was in different situations, know how he was with grace and truth, know how he was with kindness versus firmness, know how he was with task and people and rest and all of those things. And as we start to know Jesus more and understand how he's living out Chokmah and how he's being wise and how he is with people, there's this dual effect where we are saturated with him, and then we know how to do that in our own life. And so what ends up happening is we can start asking, we start by asking, what would Jesus do? But then we can start to ask, what would Jesus do if he was me? If he had the situations I was in? If he was from my family of origin? Or if he had my friend group? Or if he went to my school? Or if he was in my stage of life? Or if he worked at my workplace? Or if he was a stay-at-home parent? Or if he was a student? Or if he dealt with the pressures I dealt with? Or if he lived in the neighborhood I lived in? And you start to see, the more I know Jesus, the more how I know how he would respond to this situation that I'm in and who would respond to these relationships that I have. And then you can start to implement that in your life. And then you will start to experience Eden in those places. And that's what Proverbs is all about. So I want to show you one last thing before we close out. And this is Jesus with his core group of friends, the disciples. This is Luke 6, verses 13 through 15. It says, when the morning came, he called his disciples and chose 12 of them, whom he named apostles. Simon, whom he named Peter, and his brother Andrew, and James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, Simon who was called the Zealot, and Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became the traitor. So in this list of people, we got a wide variety of people. So we've got people who would be known as uneducated. These were the fisherman types. And then we've got Matthew, who was a tax collector. And so he was a Roman official, and he was, everyone would hate him because he was not loyal to the Jews. He was loyal to Rome, and he had a place of authority, and he probably wasn't a great guy because of how tax collecting worked, where he could steal from people. And then you've got Simon, who is a guy known as a zealot. And the zealots were this subgroup within the time period, subculture in the time period, that they were trying to start a war with Rome. They were trying to do everything they could to start a war with Rome, and they thought, this will force God's hand, and God will have to support us in this war, and we'll get our freedom. And then you've got Judas Iscariot. So Iscariot is not his last name, because they did not have last names back then, and that just would be incredibly bad luck to invent the last name and also kill the Messiah. So we know that's not his last name. So thank you for laughing, Carolyn. I appreciate that one. I worked hard on that joke. Iscariot can be one of two things. It can be, where is that person from? Like, there's some options of like, maybe they're from this town or that town. But what it could also mean is a derivative of the word Sicarii. And the Sicarii were essentially the suicide bombers of the Zealots. What they did is they took a life oath to always have a dagger on them. And whenever they would see a vulnerable Roman official, they would kill them. They would, if you're walking through the market and the person's not paying attention, they would stab them. And they would try and start riots, and they would try and start all these things to get Rome to just fight them. So when Jesus recruits all these guys and he gets to Matthew and he says, I think you're gonna really like being here. Like, we've got some really great guys. The other 11 guys are super cool. They all probably hate you. One of them probably has a life oath to kill you, but everyone's super cool here, right? Like, this does not feel like Chokmah, right? This does not feel like surrounding yourself with the wise or having supportive people. This feels like a time bomb. And you have to ask, okay, what is Jesus doing here? And the thing about Jesus, and the thing about how he's embodying wisdom, and the thing about what he's trying to demonstrate for us is that when we know him, it changes everything. And committing our lives to Jesus means that he commits us to everyone else who's following him. When we commit to Jesus, he also commits to us and commits us to everyone else who's following with him. And he reorganizes our relationships. And he says, because you have me in common, everything else that would divide you goes away. We have more in common with each other because of me than anything else. But there's still going to be tension. There's still going to be things that are going to come up. There's still going to be things that are challenging. But we have a family commitment, and we're going to work through these together. We're going to navigate those challenges. We're going to figure out what it means to be together. And as we work through those things with grace and humility and kindness and forgiveness, we will find Eden. The working through it is actually part of it. This is the DNA of Chokmah at place. Our intuition would tell us that can never work. People who are so different from each other can't actually be together. Go retreat to your echo chamber, be around people who look like you, think like you, act like you, deal with all the same things as you, and life will be easiest that way. And Jesus says, actually, there's another way of doing this. There's a way through me where not only we can be cordial with each other, we can be reconciled and unified together. We can be family together. And as you surround yourself with those people, you will find the people that you need to make yourself wise. You will find the people you need to support you. You will find the people that you need who can be that kind of good friction that sharpen you. In Jesus and in his family, we have everything we need. Which brings us to the act of communion. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to grab your elements. They should be on the ground around you or in your chairs. And they're all gluten-free if that's a concern for you. But communion is this moment where we commemorate what Jesus did on the cross for us, where we recognize his body broken for us, his blood shed for us. But it's also this family act where we say, all of us are taking this together. Communion, communal. It is part of the same root. It's supposed to be this recognition that we are all family together because of Jesus. So even though in this church body, we have people who are here in person and we have people who are online, we have people from different communities, people from different stages of life, different economic backgrounds, different political ideologies, different ethnic backgrounds, all sorts of different ways of being different. Maybe we even have people in this room who at one point used to be together, but have a difference that's dividing them right now. But we all also have Jesus, and that actually unites us together. And we can still be family through all of those differences. So we're gonna take communion here in a moment. But what I'd like for you to do is I'm gonna read you a paraphrased version of Eugene Peterson's Ephesians 4. And what you would just indulge me for a moment is if everyone would close their eyes and put their hands out to just symbolically receive this as a blessing, and then we'll take communion together. Receive this over you. In light of all this, here's what I want you to do. I want you to get out there and walk. Better yet, run on the road that God called you to travel. Not in fits and starts, but steadily pouring yourselves out for one another in acts of love, alert at noticing differences, and quick at mending fences. We were all called to travel on the same road, in the same direction, so stay together, both outwardly and inwardly. You have one master, one faith, one baptism, one God, the Father of all, who rules over all, works through all, and is present in all. Everything you are and think and do is permeated with oneness. We could just grab our communion elements. I'll lead you through communion now. We'll start with the bread. This is Matthew's recording. Now, as they were eating, Jesus took the bread, and after blessing it, broke it and gave thanks to the disciples and said, "Take, eat. This is my body." Let's take the bread. Now for the cup. And he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for the many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, why not drink of it again, the fruit of this vine, until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." Let's take the cup. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this time where we can be together as family because of who we are in you. And we just ask that you would permeate all of us with your relationship, with your mind, with your oneness, Lord. That who we are and who you've made us to be in you supersedes anything we are that would divide us out in the world, Lord. In your name.
worship together. Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but He brought me His love for me. Oh, His love for me. Who the Son sets free, who lives free. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last He has ransomed me, His grace runs deep. While I was a slave
so much again for joining us here at Northshore this week. One, if you made a decision, either you want to get baptized next week or you made a first-time decision for Christ or just need prayer for something this week, I'd invite you to come on over on the right-hand side of the stage. We have an I Have Decided station. Again, if you're online, you can let them know in the chat. There's a little I Need Prayer button. We'd love to connect with you. I'll be over there, so if it is your first time or you made one of those decisions, I would love to meet you and say hello. And again, thank you guys for joining us this week. Make sure before you head out, you say hello, make some new friends, and we'll see you guys right back here next week for baptisms, Palooza. It is going to be an incredible Sunday. We'll see you guys then.